What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome to Leafs Digest. The other day, we broke down a little bit of a video talking about whether or not we thought it was going to be Alex Kerfoot or Jared McCann or Travis Dermott moving on to the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft. This week is absolutely huge in the hockey world, not only just for Leafs fans, but just hockey in general. We have another expansion team coming into the league 4 years after Vegas came in and pulled off their miracle season and have kind of turned it into high expectations for this new franchise coming in. Everyone kind of thinks that they should be a middle to top of the pack team based on just what Vegas did alone. And teams had to adjust their game plans going into this expansion draft, protecting different guys, not making as many trades. But there's lots of rumors out there of different kind of deals that might be on the table for the Kraken, or there's been rumors that there are deals that are already done by the Kraken that just haven't been announced yet. So these are kind of things that we don't know what teams they are. We don't know what these deals would involve. We don't know what players could be involved in this kind of stuff, but it's really, really exciting. We're coming up to the expansion draft itself. It's going to be on this coming Wednesday. So as we're 2 days away from this, there's a lot going on and there's a lot of players up in the air. One of the big players that's kind of on the table at this point, and he's not just a target of the Kraken because the Kraken have an opportunity to sign this guy until their expansion draft time, is Gabriel Landeskog. Now, Gabriel Landeskog coming up in free agency is obviously one of the biggest names in this free agent class. He's a guy that's going to demand a lot of money. He was the youngest captain in the NHL history at the time that he was named captain in Colorado. He's one of their big key players there, and he's been on an absolute bargain deal since he's been with the team. In the last 5 years, since 2014, 2015, he's been on a $5.57 million a year deal with the Colorado Avalanche. This guy's going to be looking for a big pay raise coming up here because he has done nothing but prove his value to Colorado and to the rest of the league. Now, with the expansion draft coming up, obviously Seattle's been kicking tires on this free agency. They have that access. They have early access to guys who are going to be free agents to speak to them, see what they can get out of those guys, and those guys would be guys that they pick in the draft itself. But with Landeskog being left unprotected, it's kind of left all these questions up in the air. Now, every year free agents come up, it's the most obvious thing in the world to say, the Toronto Maple Leafs are looking at that guy. The Toronto Maple Leafs are in on that guy. The Toronto Maple Leafs would have interest in that guy. Goody, I'm going to tell you right now, if a $5.5 million mansion was listed down the end of my street as being built or being available, I have interest in it too. Does that mean I can go get it? Not a chance, but I have interest in it. So is there going to be reports out there that I have interest in this mansion at the end of my street? I'm sure you have interest in the mansion too. Does it mean I can fit it in? Hell no, there's no chance that you can fit it in. So when a report comes out that the Leafs are looking at guys like this, I think at this point it's just for the sake of throwing it out there. I don't even know what to say when something like that comes up.
Yeah, so the Landeskog situation to the Leafs, it seems somewhat ridiculous. I think that we're trying to convince ourselves that it's possible, or at least some of the Toronto media is, because of how awesome it would be. It would be a great fit on the first line. You think about how physical he is, how skilled he is. He's a natural leader. He's got veteran presence. He checks all the boxes of ideally what we want on the first line. But the first line is already so front loaded on salary. There's no way you're squeezing Gabriel Landeskog into that. And 5.5, from what I've heard in the rumor mill in the NHL, he's turned down 8 from the Colorado Avalanche. Mm-hmm. So that pretty much rules out the Leafs out of contention out of getting this player. Yeah. But still, imagination wise, it would be a great fit. But you're right, when it breaks down to the realistic situations, the logistics of getting him into Toronto, he actually lives locally, I think in Stouffville, a part of the GTA Greater Toronto area. So
during the off season.
Yeah, he does. I think his wife's from the area. So there are some added incentives for him to maybe, consider Toronto at some point. But our team structure, and also, you'd like to say that we can sell him on being contenders and having a great young core. Well, look at Colorado, right? We're not offering him anything better than what he's already got.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm with you. I don't think it's at all possible, but it would be an ideal situation if it could happen.
Yeah, and for context here too, obviously it's being talked about of these guys would be interested, but it was a member of the media who came out. It was Dave Pignota. He's a president and editor-in-chief of the Fourth Period Media Company. He went on Sportsnet Fan 590 and basically said that if the Leafs are able to get Alex Kerfoot's $3.5 million off the books, then they would be looking at Gabriel Landeskog. And like I said, it's like if I have interest in a $5.5 million mansion, I obviously have interest in it. I'm going to look at it and say, wow, that's so pretty. I'd love to have that. But it doesn't mean I can get it. And then when you look at even just break down the numbers kind of situation here, the numbers have fluctuated over the last little while. I know when we did a video a couple weeks ago, we were looking at almost $11 million in cap space. It gets knocked down because Travis Dermott signs 1.5. It gets knocked down because Wayne Simmons goes $900,000. And then you're just like slowly dwindling away. And then all of a sudden you acquire Jared McCann, $2.9 million. The Leafs are sitting at $6.415 million in cap space right now for this upcoming season. They still have at least one forward. Like, let's assume nobody gets taken, which we know this isn't the case, but like they still have one more forward spot to fill of a solidified NHL player. They have a backup goalie position, and they potentially have to fit in at like a seventh defenseman type situation into this lineup. And they only have $6.4 million to do it. So now move past the idea that they're not going to lose anybody. You're kind of looking at like your best case scenario in terms of freeing up cap is like Dave Pagnotta mentioned in losing Alex Kerfoot at $3.5 million. But even then, that only gets you to 9.9. And now David was reporting that he's heard Colorado has been offering Landeskog $5.5 million. I completely think this is just like a bargaining tactic. Like they're just pushing it out there to like lowball him to hopefully meet at a number in the middle, because maybe Landeskog's camp, which we haven't heard yet, is coming out looking for $12 million. Like we don't know what they've been asked. It hasn't been reported yet. By all accounts, they have been far apart. I wouldn't think it would be to that extent. I assume Landeskog and his camp know better to demand that kind of number. But like, this is a guy who's going to get, but like according to Eric Stevens from The Athletic, he's going to get $9 to $10 million. And let's say you slot him in on the low end of that projection, the low end at $9 million. With $9.9 million in cap space for the Leafs, if you sign a guy for $9 million, you have $900,000 to now go out there, sign one more forward, and a backup goalie at minimum. Let's say you just roll with the sixth defenseman you got. You don't even worry about a seventh. Timothy Liljegren's your seventh guy. You need one more forward, and you need a backup goaltender, and you got $900,000 to do it. The league minimum contract is $725,000. Like there's you can't fit two guys into that, and it's just completely out of the realm of possibility. And I've talked to you about this before, but your only real opportunity to get a Gabe Landeskog into this team in this situation is to dish off Marner or Tavares. Like because the thing is too, like if you get rid of Nylander, your part of your problem becomes you go from a guy who's at 6.9 million to a guy who's at 9 million. So now you go from, oh my God, we have a core four forwards who take up $40 million of cap space to, oh my God, we have a core four forwards who take up $42 million in cap space. Like it has to be one of those two guys making over $10 million, almost $11 million in Marner and then $11 million in Tavares to kind of diminish that and make that return valuable.
Yeah, it seems like a ridiculous idea, but let's keep in mind, a lot of people, not us, but a lot of people were calling for Martin to be traded. Mm-hmm. And if you were to do that trade and go back and get some younger players, obviously need to match salary to a certain extent, but you try to offload salary cap, you get a bunch of prospects, a bunch of picks, that kind of deal done. Maybe you could see something happen, but I think the Toronto media has made it clear, the Toronto team itself, like we're not intending on trading Marner. So that situation seems pretty foregone, but you know, some people, I guess, if you were to ask them right now, would say it's realistic, right? Like we want to get rid of Marner. Like he's really taken a ton of flack after last postseason, but you know, in all realness, this situation isn't going to happen. And it's just Toronto sensationalism again with the team, but I still can't get over how awesome Gabe Landeskog would be on that first line.
Yeah.
Yes, we have pinned ourselves with the Tavares contract, with the Marner contract big time. And I'm really against getting rid of Nylander because at this point it's a bang for your buck contract. Like to get rid of him. Yeah. It takes you away from what contending teams need. So yeah, Gabriel Landeskog in all seriousness will probably just remain in Colorado.
Yeah. I think he remains in Colorado. I think that they do find a way to get it done. And if he doesn't remain in Colorado, I'm going to sit here and just say I'm going to sit on it firmly is he's not coming to Toronto. The team he will be leaving Colorado for will not be the Toronto Maple Leafs. I say that pretty confidently. I mean, you look at this guy's stats, and he's 28 years old, turns 29 this year. He's 6 foot, 215 pounds. He's a big guy, loves to hit. He'll fight. He's a leader. He can score goals. He can make plays. Like, he just doesn't, his cap is not going to fit into this team. It just really, really is not. There is no real way to dance around it, and other than you got to get rid of these guys. And even when you bring up like the Marner trade, and we're both on the same page in this regard, but like, if you get rid of Marner, the only teams I guess you can dish him to are teams that have an abundance of cap space. Because if you get rid of him to someone who doesn't have that cap space, they're going to need to send the cap back. Which, what the hell does that do for us? Nothing, because we need to open the cap space. So why are we going to get a whole bunch of guys who just add up to Marner's $11 million and aren't as effective players just to get rid of Marner? So you're going to have to look at like Arizona, and you're going to trade Marner to Arizona for like 80 picks over the next 6 years and a couple prospects just to make it worth it, because you can't take the cap back. Like, this is the only way to dance around this situation.
Well, and to get specific with you, if you were to do the example you just outlined where we send Marner to Arizona, I've heard someone once pitch an Arizona Marner trade situation right after the playoffs when everyone was real heated.
Yeah.
And then someone was like, the only thing that worries me about that is when Matthews' free agency comes
and
back
tails
up.
him. Yeah,
exactly.
And he falls him out the door. Yeah.
That would be a double whammy and a half. But yeah, Marner's not going anywhere. I don't think Gabe's going anywhere, but man, I think this guy just tried to convince himself. Like, imagine he was actually asking for 5.5. He'd already be locked back up in Colorado if that was the truth.
Yeah.
So I've heard the number's 8, and he's looking for more than that, and he's not going to get out of the Leafs.
No, and I would agree that if they're offering 8 and he's turning it down, like, you're kind of looking at minimum like 9.5, probably closer to 10. He's probably demanding somewhere of 10.5, and then they're throwing out 8, and that's where you're saying, oh, they're not close. That's probably the realistic situation in this like instance. But again, like, I just don't see it fitting. For him to say that is just kind of get himself out there, get his name on the board, and get known for it. Yeah, like, the thing is too, like, you know who else the Leafs are interested in this year in this free agent class, Goody? Taylor Hall, Dougie Hamilton, like Alex Pietrangelo last year. Like, they were interested. Of course they were. If Connor McDavid becomes a free agent, or Connor McDavid requests a trade, guess who's going to be interested? The Toronto Maple Leafs. Every single goddamn team in the NHL is going to be interested.
This reminds me of free agency in the NBA. Like, obviously I work a lot with that market too, being a part of the Raptors Digest.
Yeah.
Every year you just see so many players photoshopped into a Miami Heat jersey.
Yeah.
It gets ridiculous. And it's the same thing in Toronto, right? The biggest hockey market. And it's just got that kind of sensationalism where people, they fabricate things and try to convince themselves of ways it'll work. And if it was the situation that this guy's outlining, he would be locked back up with the Colorado Avalanche. And as I already mentioned, Toronto can't pull the contender card. It's not valid when you compare ourselves to the Avalanche.
No, you're completely right. Like, you look at Toronto and what they've done in the past 5 years, and you look at the Avs, it's not like the Avs have been world beaters and have made it to the Cup finals, but they've won playoff rounds. And they have Nathan McKinnon, they have Mikko Rantanen, they have a goalie in Grubauer who was up for the Vezina, they have Cale Makar who was up for the Norris. Like, is Morgan Rielly Cale Makar? I'm going to say right now, no, he's not. We don't have those kinds of players that they have. They have a lot of young talent who are on low end deals as well.
Is Sandin Cale Makar though, Phil?
Yeah. Sandin. No, the thing is, like, Sandin is not, he's not Cale Makar right now. That's just, there's no way to say that he is. He can't dance around that one and spin it. I can't spin that any kind of way to say, yeah, he is Cale Makar. I think he is Cale Makar-esque, but not in terms of his stardom. Like, I think the way he plays is Cale Makar-esque, but I don't think he is as dominant or as good or in any kind of asset or aspect as Cale Makar is. I just think that the player comparable in terms of style of play is probably Cale Makar. But no, I would not say that. Yeah.
For anyone that didn't understand that, I was just gooning Philly for the comparison he made earlier, but I do fully agree. Like, ceiling wise, very different, but style wise, like, I can understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And honestly here, like, kind of last point to make is I love the idea of going and getting Gabe Landeskog, but we already went and got John Tavares, which I think Landeskog probably, he is a different player. In terms of speed and in terms of physicality, he's a different player. But like, you're looking at another guy who's a captain. You're looking at another guy who's a leader. You're looking at another guy who's just a bigger body playmaker, goal scorer. Like, what is this really going to change for our team other than bringing in a bigger name, another big name? I think if anything's got to happen, if any free agent gets signed, it's got to be a big defenseman. Whether or not Morgan Riley goes out or any of those D do go out, they'll probably have to make some kind of move. But if it's not one of those four guys they protected that go out, I think you still have to add a big defenseman to actually push yourselves over the hump and give yourselves a chance this year.
Yeah, it would definitely help. I think that our top four is really solid. And if Sandin can make another jump, I think that's great. And that'll help us out big time. But yeah, the answer at this point is clearly not going to be Gabriel Landeskog. And I think that you're almost better at this point, just based on the Leafs' recent history of taking an underdog approach where you pick up players like McCann, you pick up maybe a player like Paul Mary, something like that, versus going for these big name former captain guys who I honestly feel like come into Toronto with a lot of pressure to lead. There's almost too many voices at some point. Not saying that was like
there's too many
like a visible issue,
like cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that's been like a visible issue or whatever, but at this point, just shake it up and try a different approach. Like there's so many underdog teams, like take Montreal, for example, that they just have a bunch of hardworking guys, some of which on really value bargain contracts. You know, the Leafs have had this approach of getting these big names with big expectations, big resumes, and it's just, you know, it hasn't worked so far. So a little bit of a different shake-up approach would be nice, and Landeskog would be going right back into that find as many former captains as possible approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, not saying I wouldn't love it though, but
yeah, if they could find a way to fit it in here and it like actually made financial sense, yeah, I would be over the moon to sign Gabriel Landeskog, but I just don't see it fitting, and I don't think it's what they need. Like, yes, it would be lovely to have, but I don't think it's what they need moving forward. Anyways, I think this is it was kind of an insane take by this guy. Obviously, you're going to look at this and say, yeah, they have interest. No doubt. If they didn't have interest, I'd be mad. Like if the Leafs looked at it and said, no, we don't care for Gabriel Landeskog, or we're not going to see what we can do with it, I'd be like, why not? Why wouldn't you look at it? I just don't see it being a plausible fit here. I don't see him fitting into the cap. And I think that there's other holes that need to be filled here that are bigger than signing a big forward. If you didn't have Matthews, or you didn't have Marner, or you didn't have Nylander and Tavares, whatever the case may be, then sitting here saying, yeah, we'll go get Gabe Landeskog, I'd be all for it. I'd be balls to the wall, let's go get him. But you have these four guys who are already taking up $40 million of cap space. Why do we need to go and get another big name guy? I just don't think that's the fit. But if you like what we're doing on here on the Leafs Digest channel, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You like our videos, comment, whatever you got to do. Tell us how big of idiots that we are saying that Landeskog can't come here. If you think there's a way for him to fit, let us know in the comments. We want to hear it all. If there's guys that you think, or free agents that you think are out there that the Leafs should pursue or they should sign, make sure you let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, whatever you got to do. Leafs fans, this is an exciting week. We got the expansion draft, we got the NHL entry draft, and then it's going to be followed up in the following week with the NHL free agency opening up. This is a big week for the Leafs. This is a big week for hockey. So Leafs fans, stay tuned to this channel for more content coming, and keep believing.
Signing off.